today I have another Harry Potter read. I shall be reading to you Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix today by J.K. Rowling. Super excited for this one because Order of the Phoenix is one of my most favorite part, both in books and in movies. So without any further ado, let's get started with our read for today. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Order of the Phoenix. Order of the Phoenix. Let's pick a random chapter to begin with. Okay, let's see which chapter is this one. Okay, chapter number 19. The Lion and the Serpent. Harry felt as though he was carrying some kind of talisman inside his chest over the following 2 weeks. A glowing secret that supported him through Umbridge's glasses and even made it possible for him to smile blandly as he looked into her horrible bulging eyes. He and the DA were resisting her under her very nose, doing the very thing she and the Ministry most feared. And whenever he was supposed to be reading Wilbert Lingard's book during her lessons, he dwelled instead on satisfying memories of their most recent meetings, remembering how Neville had successfully disarmed Hermione, how Colin Creevey had mastered the impediment jinx after 3 meetings is hard effort, how Parvati Patil had produced such a good reductor curse that she had reduced the table carrying all the sneakoscopes to dust. He was finding it almost impossible to fix a regular night of the week for the Dumbledore Army's meetings, as they had to accommodate 3 separate teams' Quidditch practices, which were often rearranged due to bad weather conditions. But Harry was not sorry about this. He had a feeling that it was probably better to keep the timing of their meetings unpredictable. If anyone was watching them, it would be hard to make out a pattern. Hermione soon devised a very clear method of communicating the time and date of the next meeting to all the members in case they needed to change it at short notice, because it would look suspicious if people from different houses were seen crossing the Great Hall to talk to each other too often. She gave each of the members of the DA a fake galleon. Ron became very excited when he first saw the basket and was convinced she was actually giving out gold. "You see the numerals around the edge of the coins?" Hermione said, holding one up for examination at the end of their 4th meeting. The coin gleamed fat and yellow in the light from the torches. On real galleons, that's just her serial number referring to the goblin who cast the coin. On these fake coins, though, the number will change to reflect the time and date of the next meeting. The coins will grow hot when the date changes, so if you're carrying them in a pocket, you'll be able to feel them. We take 1 each, and when Harry sets the date of the next meeting, he will change the number on his coin. And because I've put a Portian charm on them, they'll all change to mimic his. A blank silence greeted Hermione's words. She looked around at all the faces upturned to her, rather disconcerted. "Well, I thought it was a good idea," she said uncertainly. "I mean, even if Umbridge asked us to turn out our pockets, there's nothing fishy about carrying a galleon, is there?" But, well, if you don't want to use them, you can do a Portian charm," said Terryboot. Yes, said Hermione. But that's a nude standard. That is, he said weakly. Oh, said Hermione, trying to look modest. Oh, well, yes, I suppose it is. How come you're not in Ravenclaw? He demanded, staring at Hermione with something close to wonder. With brain like yours. Well, the sorting hat did seriously consider putting me in Ravenclaw during my sorting, said Hermione brightly, but it decided on Gryffindor in the end. So, does that mean we are using galleons? There was a murmur of assent, and everybody moved forwards to collect one from the basket. Harry looked sideways at Hermione. You know what these remind me of? No, what's that? What's that? The Death Eater's scars. Voldemort touches one of them, and all their scars burn, and they know they've got to join him. Well, yes, said Hermione quietly. That is where I got the idea. But you will notice I decided to engrave the date on bits of metal rather than our members' skin. Yeah, I prefer your way, said Harry, grinning as he slipped his galleon into his pocket. I suppose the only danger with these is that we might accidentally spin them. Fat chance, said Ron, who was examining his own fake galleon with a slightly mournful air. I haven't got any real galleon to confuse it with. As the first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor vs. Slytherin, drew near, their DA meetings were put on hold because Angelina insisted on almost daily practices. The fact that the Quidditch Cup had not been held for so long added considerably to the interest and excitement surrounding the forthcoming game. The Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs were taking a lively interest in the outcome, for they, of course, would be playing both teams over the coming years. And the head of the house of the competing teams, though they attempted to disguise it under a decent pretense of sportsmanship, were determined to see their own side victorious. Harry realized how much Professor McGonagall cared about beating Slytherin when she abstained from giving them homework in the week leading up to the match. Got enough to be getting on with at the moment, she said loftily. Nobody could quite believe their ears until she looked directly at Harry and Ron and said grimly, I have become accustomed to seeing the Quidditch Cup in my study, boys, and I really don't want to have to hand it over to Professor Snape. So, use the extra time to practice, won't you?
Snape was no less
He had
obviously
booked the Quidditch pitch for Slytherin practice so often that the Gryffindors had difficulty getting on it to play. He was also turning a deaf ear to the many reports of Slytherin attempt to hex Gryffindor players in the corridors. When Alicia Snippet turned up in the hospital wing with her eyebrows growing so thick and fast they obscured her vision and obstructed her mouth, Snape insisted that she must have attempted a hair-thickening charm on herself and refused to listen to the 14 eyewitnesses who insisted that they had seen the Slytherin keeper Miles Bletchley hit her from behind with a jinx while she worked in the library. Harry felt optimistic about Gryffindor's chances. They had, after all, never lost to Malfoy's teams. Admittedly, Ron was still not performing to Wood's standard, but he was working extremely hard to improve. His greatest weakness was a tendency to lose confidence after he had made a blunder. If he let in one goal, he became flustered and was therefore likely to miss more. On the other hand, Harry had seen Ron make some truly spectacular saves when he was on form. During one memorable practice, he had hung one-handed from his broom and kicked the quaffle so hard away from the goal hoop that it soared the length of the pitch and through the center hoop at the other end. The rest of the team felt the save compared favorably with one made recently by Barry Ryan, the Irish international keeper, against Poland's top chaser Ladislaw Zamoyski. Even Fred had said that Ron might yet make him and George proud, and that they were seriously considering admitting he was related to them, something they assured him they had been trying to deny for 4 years. The only thing really worrying Harry was how much Ron was allowing the tactics of Slytherin team to upset him before they even got on the pitch. Harry, of course, had endured their snide comments for over 4 years, so whispers of, "Hey Potty, I heard Warrington's sworn to knock you off your broom on Saturday," far from chilling his blood, made him laugh. "Warrington's aim is so pathetic, I'd be more worried if he was aiming for the person next to me," he retorted, which made Ron and Hermione laugh and wipe the smirk off Pansy Parkinson's face. But Ron had never endured a relentless campaign of insults, jeers, and intimidation. When Slytherins, some of them 7th years and considerably larger than he was, muttered as they passed in the corridors, "Got your bed booked in the hospital wing, Weasley?" He didn't laugh, but turned a delicate shade of green. When Draco Malfoy imitated Ron dropping the quaffle, which he did whenever they came within sight of each other, Ron's ears glowed red and his hands shook so badly that he was likely to drop whatever he was holding at the time too. October extinguished itself in a rush of howling winds and driving rain, and November arrived, cold as frozen iron, with hard frosts every morning and icy draughts that bit at exposed hands and faces. The skies and the ceiling of the great hall turned a pale pearly grey, the mountains around Hogwarts were snow-capped, and the temperature in the castle dropped so low that many students wore their thick protective dragon-skin gloves in the corridors between lessons. The morning of the match dawned bright and cold. When Harry awoke, he looked round at Ron's bed and saw him sitting bolt upright, his arms round his knees, staring fixedly into space. "You all right?" said Harry. Ron nodded but did not speak. Harry was reminded forcibly of the time Ron had accidentally put a slug-vomiting charm on himself. He looked just as pale and sweaty as he had done then, not to mention as reluctant to open his mouth. "You just need some breakfast," Harry said breezingly. "Come on." The great hall was filling up fast when they arrived, the talk louder and the mood more exuberant than usual. As they passed the Slytherin table, there was an upsurge of noise. Harry looked round and saw that, in addition to the usual green and silver scarves and hats, every one of them was wearing a silver badge in the shape of what seemed to be a crown. For some reason, many of them waved at Ron, laughing uproariously. Harry tried to see what was written on the badges as he walked by, but he was too concerned to get Ron past their table quickly to linger long enough to read them. They received a rousing welcome at the Gryffindor table, where everyone was wearing red and gold, but far from raising Ron's spirit, the cheer seemed to sap the last of his morale. He collapsed onto the nearest bench, looking as though he were facing his final meal. "I must have been mental to do this," he said in a croaky whisper. "Mental." "Don't be thick," said Harry firmly, passing him a choice of cereals. "You're going to be fine. It's normal to be nervous." "I'm rubbish," croaked Ron. "I'm lousy. I can play to save my life. What was I thinking?" "Get a grip," said Harry sternly. "Look at that save you made with your foot the other day. Even Fred and George said it was brilliant." Ron turned a tortured face to Harry. "That was an accident," he whispered miserably. "I didn't mean to do it. I slipped off my broom when none of you were looking, and when I was trying to get back on, I kicked the quaffle by accident." "Well," said Harry, recovering quickly from this unpleasant surprise. A few more accidents like that, and the game's in the bag, isn't it? Hermione and Ginny sat down opposite them wearing red and gold scarves, gold gloves, and rosettes. "How are we feeling?" Ginny asked Ron, who was now staring into the tracks of milk at the bottom of his empty cereal bowl as though seriously considering attempting to drown himself in them. "He's just nervous," said Harry. "Well, that's a good sign, and never feel you perform as well in exams if you're not a bit nervous," said Hermione heartily. "Hello," said a vague, dreamy voice from behind them. Harry looked up. Luna Lovegood had drifted over from the Ravenclaw table. Many people were staring at her, and a few more openly laughing and pointing. She had managed to procure a hat shaped like a life-size lion's head, which was perched precariously on her head. "I'm supporting Gryffindor," said Luna, pointing unnecessarily at her hat. "Look what it does." She reached up and tapped the hat with her wand. It opened its mouth wide and gave an extremely realistic roar that made everyone in the vicinity jump. "It's good, isn't it?" said Luna happily. "I wanted to have it chewing up a serpent to represent Slytherin, you know, but there wasn't time. Anyway, good luck, Ronald." She drifted away. They had not quite recovered from the shock of Luna's hat before Angelina came hurrying towards them, accompanied by Katie and Alicia, whose eyebrows had mercifully been returned to normal by Madame Pomfrey. Madame Pomfrey, Madame Pomfrey. Okay, with that, I shall be ending today's book read. And I want to thank you for joining me today on this wonderful Harry Potter book read. And I shall see you in my next one. Bye bye. Take care till then.